Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, March the 2nd, 2023. Now, today I did want to talk a little bit more about Harry and Meghan in the context of their relationship and how you might use astrology to characterize and evaluate their relationship. I'm not going to go into any great detail, but I'm going to perhaps establish a few principles and make some observations. As far as today's planets are concerned, the moon is in Cancer, where it makes a trine to Neptune in Pisces. It's an aspect that's often connected with sensitivity, with psychic ability. I mean, psychic ability in a kind of quite gentle way. I'm not talking about moving objects, setting things on fire at a distance. More like generally getting in tune with what other people are feeling. Not so much for thinking, but more the feeling. We might try to draw some conclusions about what thoughts are going through other people's heads, but we have to remember that Neptune is a planet of delusion. So we might pick up feelings, but when we try to make assumptions about thoughts, we could get it very wrong. So we do have to be a bit careful when taking the emotional temperature. We might get the general picture, but we shouldn't try to be too specific. And while all this is going on, Venus and Jupiter are dead on. The conjunction is exact. We've been seeing the build-up over the last few days. Now it's a time when, yes, we can be lucky, provided we are very, very positive about it. We know we have to be completely open to all sorts of wonderful possibilities happening, and we mustn't have any doubts. Doubts will kill everything, and there are going to be doubts for many of us. This is because Mercury is making a conjunction to Saturn. Mercury is a planet of thought. Saturn is a planet of restriction. As soon as our brains start going, we'll start thinking about all the things that could go wrong. We will decide logically that the situation is hopeless, when it's not hopeless at all. If we just forgot about Mercury and Saturn and focus on the Venus and Jupiter, then that's probably for the best. But Mercury-Saturn does have a positive note, particularly in Aquarius. Both planets work pretty well in Aquarius. So it's a great time for detailed thought, for working things through in quite an objective way, not being overly optimistic, because we know that if we are overly optimistic for too long, in the end we're going to be disappointed. So if we're realistic and we can tackle problems in a systematic way, then I think we can get some excellent results. Another aspect I should mention is a 30-degree aspect between Saturn in Aquarius and Pluto in Capricorn. When you put Saturn and Pluto together, or you try to interpret aspects between them, you get a lot of frustration. Saturn is about restriction. Pluto is about transformation. We're trying so hard to make big changes in our lives, yet whenever we do this, we hit some big restrictions, and sometimes we just think, oh, something has to give. And today might be the day when something does give, or we'd like it to give, but it's difficult. So there could be a lot of pressure. So what I'm kind of saying is that there are three forces going on today. You've got Venus Jupiter, which is great. Saturn Pluto, Mercury Saturn, which is quite downbeat. And then you've got Saturn Pluto, which is potentially very frustrated. And we've got three forces at work. And so how do you actually bring them together? And I'm just saying we may just pick and choose. If we're a natural optimist, focus on Venus Jupiter. If we're of a more serious mind, it's Mercury Saturn that we should start to own. And serious thought will get results, but we might have to be patient. Now, as far as Harry and Meghan are concerned, I mean, I've talked about them yesterday and the day before, I think. And there is a question: are they suited to each other? That's a question that astrologers are often asked. There's this thing in astrology called synastry, where you look at the planets of both parties and you try to match them up and you try to work out whether or not a relationship can last. I'm not a great fan of this. I don't think that astrology can really tell whether two people can have a long-term relationship. Astrology might indicate some tensions, but I wouldn't say we can tell for sure. And I think there is an argument for saying that the less people have in common astrologically, the better it is, because where there's no astrological clash, there's going to be less scope, obviously, for an argument. Now, as far as Harry and Meghan are concerned, they both have a sextile aspect between Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars is a combination connected with sexual expression. So in one sense, the way they are and the way they project their sexuality seems to work quite well. With Meghan, she has Sun on the Venus-Mars midpoint. This is, very charismatic in a way. She can certainly project her sexuality. But if someone has Sun on the Venus-Mars midpoint, it often means that they are projecting a certain type of sexuality. Some people will find it attractive, other people will not. And this Venus-Mars midpoint, which I think is around 12 Leo, is exactly square Harry's Saturn at 12 Scorpio. I think this is really important, and it's not very fortunate. And I'm wondering what it means. I think that Harry's Saturn is about his own concerns, his own insecurities, and perhaps in some way Meghan's sexuality, the way she expressed itself, it unlocked a key. Because I think their relationship, at least to begin with, was really about sex and sexual attraction. I don't think it was really about anything else. Maybe that's how most relationships start. Certainly, as I said yesterday, Meghan has nothing in common with Princess Diana. You'd line up their charts. They don't chime with each other. I don't think there's any reason for Harry to have seen his mother in Meghan. So this unlocking of Harry's Saturn is a two-edged sword, because it works both ways. Harry's Saturn is square Meghan's Sun. Now, Meghan's Sun is in her second house in Leo, and it's connected with money. And somehow the money issue is perhaps coming from Harry. She is feeling the restrictions of having a husband who is not as rich as she'd like him to be, and that's at least that's what the tabloid papers are suggesting. But there may also be a sexual dimension. I think there is a certain disharmony there, and I think that disharmony is far more felt by Meghan than it is by Harry. But I'm not saying that their marriage is in danger. I mean, they've got two children, so probably everything's going to be fine. But their their relationship is a reminder that in terms of astrology, you can have a relationship with not great synastry, um, and it can still work at least for a time. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow.